So my name is Drew Bond. I'm the CEO of Powerfield Energy. Powerfield Energy, as the slide says, is the world's simplest solar installation system. Now that's a pretty bold claim, but if you'll give me just a few minutes, I'll back it up. So when we think about the challenge for energy, and specifically solar energy, you've probably seen this stat before. There's 1.2 billion people in the world without electricity. In today's world, that seems inexcusable in our minds. When we think about the business opportunity just in the US, the global market actually for solar, I should say the global market for solar is 345 billion. So that's a huge market. That's a huge market. So my colleagues and I, two of whom are from AES and AES Solar, have spent years developing solar power plants and developing large power plants. And so we pulled back from this challenge and this opportunity and said, why is solar still so expensive? Why is it so hard to install? It's made, no offense to the engineers, it's made by engineers and for engineers. It's a huge elaborate erector set that requires digging, it requires lots of engineering, it requires steel, concrete, heavy machinery. It's way too complex. When you think about it, a big part of the cost related to solar is actually no longer the solar panel, it's all the other soft and balance of plant costs. So today with Powerfield Energy, it doesn't have to be that way. Powerfield Energy, as I said, has created the world's simplest solar installation system. With our system, solar can be installed at up to 30 times faster and at half the cost. Our systems are so simple that those three pictures depict the process. The first step is to take our simple rack, which is a high-density polyethylene container, a simple rack, designed to sit on the ground and to do its job in high winds, which is to sit there and hold that solar panel into place. That simple rack weighs 17 pounds when it's empty. Those are several units that are stacked inside of each other, so they're designed to stack and nest for shipping purposes. The next step, once you've laid out a row of these systems, is to fill them with sand. And you can do that by hand, you can do it with a side discharge bobcat, you can do it by a pickup truck, you can think about high-tech ways to do this, you can think about low-tech ways to do this. And then the next step is to put the solar panel on top of that container where it actually latches into place with not a single tool. It literally is that simple. So that system there on the right was installed and is installed at the National Renewable Energy Lab. That system was installed by 6 people who had never done it before in 4.5 hours. 56 panels, 17 kilowatts in 4.5 hours. We know from that one experience that we can cut that time in half by a few little tweaks in the way that we actually lay out the system. Nothing to do with our actual product. So again, it literally is that simple. So when we think about our target market and growth plan, we like to keep things simple at Powerfield. Our first focus is that target 500 kilowatt systems. These tend to be in rural areas, farmers and ranchers, small commercial and industrial customers. Our focus there is to really begin to build out that space here in the US, to really dominate that space, and then to expand to the larger systems, 2 megawatts and 20 megawatts. Our growth plan, as you see in the block number 1, is to first demonstrate our system at the National Renewable Energy Lab. We've done that and are doing that. We set up our system in the heart of the highest winds at that National Wind Test Center at NREL. And so we've lived through winds of 88 miles an hour. We've done the engineering that shows that when you install a solar system with our product, that they'll withstand winds of up to 120 or more miles per hour, which is, again, the whole point of the solar installation system, is to keep the solar panel into place, right? So in the next 6 months, we're going to showcase 3 to 6 projects. So we've begun to build a pipeline of 12 projects, some as small as 10 kW, others as large as 80 to 400 to 700 kW, others as large as 7 megawatts. But our focus is really those smaller systems in the next 6 months. So we want to get 3 to 6 of those systems in place so that we can show our customers, the installers and developers in this world, that this product truly is as simple as advertised and it's as durable as advertised. So from there, we're also looking to build a relationship with a strategic partner. So to give you an idea, we've talked to a large box top store. We've been in multiple meetings with this large customer. For them, we're an opportunity in two ways. One is to install our system at their rural distribution center, where they have land that's not being utilized, and that if one day they want to utilize that land, they can move our system and actually build something there and move our system to another place. The other is there's an opportunity here to actually sell this product direct to customers. So that's not our near-term focus. Our near-term focus, as I said, is to get those installations in place and to prove ourselves with installers and developers. But we know that there's a huge market out there for the do-it-yourself, the DIY space. So from there, next year, our focus is to take that work that we've done this year and really dominate, as I said, in the U.S. rural space, and then to dominate in the globe. We do have some thoughts about that, which leads us to our team. We've got 100 years or more of experience among our team members. Myself, I've worked at Battelle, one of the largest nonprofits that manages 7 of the national labs. I've been a vice president there. I've worked at the Department of Energy at the Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy Office, and I've led 5 startups, 3 of which were in clean tech. Paul Burdick, Paul, can you raise your hand? Paul Burdick and David Flory both worked at AES and AES Solar. They're really the original brains behind this product. Paul has developed power plants all around the world, much, much bigger than the one that you saw at NREL. He knows this space really well. David has financed those projects and is currently actually serving as head of project finance for Synetics. Keith Wright, as I hinted to earlier, is our focus in the near future for the emerging market space. Keith formerly was the president of Food for the Hungry in East Africa, living and working for decades in Uganda and Kenya. Keith knows this space, and so when we're ready, once we've demonstrated here in the US, now that our patent has been issued, I should say, we're gonna really focus on moving to emerging markets. So we're seeking $1.5 million to scale our manufacturing and to scale our sales. We've ticked off a bunch of milestones to date. I mentioned our patent that's just issued. We've raised $365,000. We've only spent half of that because we're not paying ourselves. Next year, we're focused on $1 million in sales and then cash flow positive by 2020. Our most obvious likely exit is an acquisition, although we're looking at multiple options. So with that, I'll say thank you for your time. I hope you'll join us in this simple but disruptive journey of taking more solar to more people faster and simpler than ever before. Thank you.
I don't mind, I can go. Help yourself.
Start in the middle. How about you, Zach? Yeah. So I love this, and I used to be one of those long-tail solar developers you're going after. So I love your strategy of focusing on the segment that's kind of ignored right now, but that there's tons of developers out there doing those 500 kW systems. My main question, I mean, I have like 50 for later, but my main question, I guess, is somewhat simple, which is that kind of mid-scale, long-tail developer, if you can save them some money fast, is going to do this, and if not, probably isn't. Let's say a 500 kW system that's ground mount. I don't know, maybe they're building for $1.40 in some places now, maybe $1.50. The panel itself is 50 cents. So what is it that when you sell this to them, are you saying, look, I can take you down 30 cents, 20 cents, 10 cents, and how easy is that pitch? What is the savings that you're pitching them versus traditional ground mount?
Yeah, good question. So the savings always depends on the scale of the system, right? We've heard ranges of everywhere from as high as $3 an installed watt down to the smaller projects that you're talking about. It's sort of the 140 to 150, occasionally at 125. I can tell you with our product, we can beat $1 a watt on those small projects. So right now, when you hear the solar industry talk about $1 a watt, those actually mean 100 megawatt scale utility, projects. Or if you hear about smaller projects and that same $1 a watt tag to that, it's usually an Apple or a Google or some, Amazon that has a bunch of distributed systems. So they're able to roll those up and they've got the bargaining power. Yep. So we can dramatically cut those costs. And that's what we've seen in just the NREL demonstration and one press release. We actually invited some developers out to help us install our system. We love NREL, but they have all these federal regulations, and so that we couldn't have volunteers. So last minute, we had to hire some contract day laborers to come install. So the developers got to sit back and watch, and every one of them said, "This is amazing. How soon can we get the product? We want it." And so we've got a guy in Colorado now doing contract sales for us who's starting to build that pipeline. And from the rural developer standpoint, those customers are looking at this and saying, "I've been looking at solar, I've been thinking about it. It's always been too complicated. It's always been this ugly mess that I don't want to look at." This reduces that barrier big time.
Super quick follow-on, and thanks for explanation. The quick follow-on is just, do you integrate with all different panel manufacturers? Does it have to be SunPower, or is it anybody? What's your?
Yeah, thanks for the question. Yes, we integrate with any off-the-shelf solar panel on the market.
Awesome, thanks.
Yes.
Thank you. So I was wondering, do you have already identified your competitors? And if no, who might be them? Because I have in mind what we call the containerized microgrid that can be quickly as well deployed or opened. And I was wondering what would be, do you fear this kind of competitors?
Yes, there's definitely competition out there. There's not a lot of it, I'll tell you. There's a company called Renusol that makes a similar sort of container product. They advertise it as being very simple. You could go on YouTube and see two people installing two panels. It takes them about 9 minutes. It's all been very kind of pre-baked. The reality is that system in the field you have to drill holes, and there's nuts and bolts, and then there's a special drill that you need to get up under it. But even let's just take face value their video. 9 minutes, two guys. For us, you and I can install a solar panel in 30 seconds. Like, it's literally that simple. So the other competitors, there's a company called Nuance. They have a product called Osprey that was acquired, I think, last year. Theirs is a simple framework that requires ground penetration. Ours doesn't require ground penetration. So there's a company called Game Change Solar. Again, very simple, but steel framework, concrete, not as simple. The biggest competitor, frankly, that I think about is the developers and installers who are used to doing things the way they're used to doing it. And so what we really need is some early customers, which is why we're focused on getting out there as quickly as possible. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Sure. Thanks very much. I think this is really interesting. So before I ask my question, a quick comment. I'm sure this is in the back of your mind, but I do believe that you have a particularly strong advantage in, especially in the early stages of your company, in serving applications where solar is to be used in a certain location, but not indefinitely. So firstly, in industries where that's the case, mining naturally, you only mine in a place for a certain time, right? But also emergency assistance and maybe also military operations. So just as a thought of like fast customers, or not fast for you, but you know what I mean. My actual question is around IP. Now, I'm by no means an IP expert. You said you have some degree of IP, but it does strike me as it's a piece of material that you fill with sand. Presumably somebody can build that, round instead of squared or whatever, and fill something else that's heavy and easy to transport, that isn't sand. So can you take us a little bit through the intricacies of the IP, especially given that you're thinking of operating a lot in emerging markets, some of which have weak IP protection frameworks, which in turn might spook your investors?
Yeah, great question. So real quick, we filed our provisional PCTs back in 2016. We filed the utilities in 2017. We just had our patent issue about 4 weeks ago. That patent actually is a utility patent that covers not only the product, but also the process. And then we've got a provisional filed also on a different product for a similar application, but for rooftops. And so I would say the patent that we have is pretty broad. To your point, there's still ways around it. I mean, when I first saw this product, frankly, I'm like, it's so simple, surely somebody has done this. We did the search and nobody has really done this. And so our focus is get a patent, which we did, get a really big law firm to defend us, which we did, and go fast, which is what we are seeking to do.